When the nurse came in to take my blood, it was insane because she had a whole cart. Usually when they take your blood, they have like, several tubes. She had like a whole basket full of tubes. I mean, it was basically like I was donating blood. It was ridiculous. Hi there, my name is Melissa and I am the creator and founder of thepureappeal.com. It is a website where I blog and information about healthy alternative healing, different ways to heal yourself, also to share a little bit of my personal journey and story of how I got to where I am today. And so I wanted to also make this video today, and I'm gonna do it in several different sections because it's kind of a long story, but I wanted to share my story with you of how this kind of all started, my sort of health journey and what I've learned along the way and how I'm going to continue learning even more and helping you guys to find ways to heal yourself. So starting in the beginning, I had made an appointment for just a regular physical with my doctor. I hadn't seen my doctor in a while and I needed to just kind of get a general checkup. I'm 33 years old and I wanted to just see, how my health was doing. So when she ran the blood work, we found that my white blood cell count was low, which she said it could be food allergies, it could be vitamin deficiency, something like that, nothing too serious. So we kind of monitored it, and I did sort of an elimination diet to see if it was maybe food allergies, and nothing really changed with that. So a month later, we ran my blood work again, and my white blood cell count was low again, and this time my platelets were a little bit low as well. So things were just kind of getting weird, and we weren't exactly sure kind of what was causing it. So at the same time too, I sort of started developing these little red spots. They started out on my forehead and then they were kind of spreading to the rest of my face, my chest, and some on my, I didn't have them on my arms yet, but I had some on my back. And it didn't really look like acne, so we weren't exactly sure what it could be. And my doctor wanted me to go see a dermatologist to see if they could figure out what was going on. So I went to a dermatologist and he kind of checked me out, and it was kind of funny because I felt like a guinea pig or like a lab rat because the dermatologist was checking me over, the physician assistant was checking me over. I mean, they were just eyeballing every little sore, trying to figure out what it was, and it basically stumped both of them. Neither of them knew what was going on or what it could be. But he said that he thought it might be something like folliculitis, which I don't know if you know, that's basically just an inflammation of the hair follicles, which I've had in the past. When I used to dance a lot, we would wear, like spandex pants and stuff, so my skin couldn't breathe as well. And sometimes I would get infections just in the hair follicles, and they would just kind of look like little red bumps right where the hair follicle was. And these kind of things, they looked different. So I wasn't really on board with his diagnosis. I didn't believe that it was folliculitis, but regardless, he put me on some antibiotics and said that should just clear it right up. And if not, then he wanted to do a skin biopsy. So now a couple months have gone by. Some other issues I was having, I was kind of feeling lightheaded and dizzy at times, sort of short of breath. And at one point I was running a fever and I was having kind of a lot of these symptoms at once. And so we went into the ER and they did all sorts of tests. They checked they did like an x-ray of my chest to check my lungs since I was short of breath. Everything looked normal there. And so they basically ran a bunch of blood tests thinking that maybe I was exposed to some like Lyme disease or something like that because of the sores and the fever and all those kinds of things. So all those tests came back negative, which in a way was a relief, but I was also kind of hoping that we would at least get an answer, some sort of positive result so we could say, okay, this is what it is and this is how we can help. But we didn't. So some time went by and things just were getting worse. The rash was spreading. It just wasn't doing well. During this time, since things were getting worse, I had several other visits to the ER where they checked me out. They did all sorts of blood work. Again, nothing was conclusive. We couldn't figure out what was going on. So one of the times they admitted me to the hospital. So I spent 3 days in the hospital and they tested me for everything. They did, when the nurse came in to take my blood, it was insane because she had a whole cart. Usually when they take your blood, they have like, several tubes. And if it's a little more intense, they have, several more. She had like a whole basket full of tubes. It was basically like I was donating blood. It was ridiculous. So she took She took all the samples that they needed to test, and they tested me for more of, diseases like Lyme disease. They tested me for infectious diseases. They tested me for Ebola. I mean, they were like, let's just test her for everything because we need to figure out what this is. And ironically, what's weird is in the hospital, even though I saw a hematologist, a doctor that specializes in blood and bone marrow, they couldn't do a bone marrow biopsy there in the hospital, which is really what I needed. The bone marrow is where your blood cells are created, and so that would kind of just be a direct answer, like, okay, let's see what's going on, we need the bone marrow biopsy. So they couldn't do that in the hospital. I asked if they could also do a skin biopsy in the hospital because that would obviously tell us a direct answer of what's going on with my skin. They couldn't do that in the hospital either. So I was just really frustrated because not only now have I been admitted to the hospital, I've stayed days in the hospital doing tests that aren't giving me answers, they're not able to do the tests that I need to get the answers. So anyways, I was released from the hospital and said to do a follow-up appointment with a hematologist, oncologist, and also my dermatologist to have him do a bone marrow, a skin biopsy on some of my sores. That next week, I went into the hematologist, oncologist. He did the bone marrow biopsy. And the same day, I also went to the dermatologist for the skin biopsy. They were both okay. The skin biopsy, though, I did end up getting cellulitis, which is an infection of the skin at the site of the stitches. So again, that warranted another visit to the ER because it was after hours and it was on the weekend, and the doctor wouldn't be able to see me. And obviously, if you have an infection like that that's spreading where you've had stitches, it's kind of serious if it gets worse. So I had to go to the ER again, get some different antibiotics to help with that. So all this time, I'm just like, we're just really trying to figure out what was going on. And it was so frustrating because no one could figure it out. No one had answers. I felt like I was like a freak of nature because no one could figure it out and they were just stumped by everything that was going on. So I will continue my story in the next video, so please stay tuned and watch part 2 of this video, and I will continue on and tell you more about my story.